On this week's FAS TV, we're in Shetland as the local community prepares for Shetland Wool Week. Shetland Wool Week is a world-renowned celebration of Britain's most northerly native sheep, the Shetland textile industry, and the rural crofting community on these small islands. Since its conception 14 years ago, Shetland Wool Week has grown into an internationally acclaimed event where locals come together to share their traditions, culture and heritage to visitors.
The best thing about Wool Week is that it just shines a light on Shetland's heritage, and that's really important for its survival to be noticed. As I said, there's so many makers have gone unrecognised in the past, and now it's becoming more, because of Wool Week we have a global platform to show off our art really.
And it's always really good to see the same people coming back year after year. There's some people that have come to nearly every Wool Week since it began, and you get to know people really well, and it's like meeting up with old friends again. My name is Donna Smith, and this year I'm the curator for Wool Week.
And my name's Alison Rendell, and I'm this year's Shetland Wool Week patron.
Wool Week is it's really a 10-day event which hosts lots of different classes, talks, pop-up studios. What else goes on?
Open days and drop-in sessions.
Lots and lots of different things, and it's all over Shetland as well. So there's community halls that set on events and classes in Lerwick, and so it's a very busy 10 days. It's a lot bigger than it was when it first began. I wasn't involved with it right back at the beginning. Were you involved? No.
Not at the beginning.
I remember hearing about this thing that was Wool Week, but wasn't involved at all. And it's just every year it's got bigger and bigger, and it seems to be, I don't know if it's going to stop.
It's there's a limit to the number of folk that we can host here, but the virtual side has got a lot bigger, particularly during the pandemic. And I think it's been good that we've carried that on so that folk all over the globe can access it, even if they can't make it here. So it's certainly grown on the virtual side as well.
Quite a few years ago there was a danger of Shetland knitting dying out, and we kind of were beginning to lose the traditions. People weren't really knitting, it wasn't really fashionable, and Shetland Wool Week really has helped to kind of bring Shetland knitting and Shetland knitwear to the fore, and also it's really given Shetland companies a boost as well. I mean, I think I really have to say, without Shetland Wool Week I don't think my business would exist, because I was patron in 2015 and designed the hat pattern, and it was really successful, and I realised that I could actually make a living out of knitting and writing patterns when I hadn't realised that before. So it is definitely and I think for a lot of businesses it's the busiest week in the whole year. I know it's certainly for me it's one of the busiest weeks.
I would agree with that. I think that September, the tourist season didn't really used to extend to September, but now it's a very busy time of year, and it's not just knitters, it's jewellery makers, woodwork makers. It's lovely to see folk making jumper boards and all kinds of things in connection with Wool Week. So I think it's really helped local folk to just value their native breed of sheep and value their wool. There was a time specifically fleece was not a valuable product, and now they just simply can't make enough of it really. So it's giving folk pride in their own native breed of sheep.
I think it's really important to preserve the traditions and also the local breeds of sheep, because it is Shetland's heritage, and it's I suppose it's our history, and it's in our blood.
I think that Shetland Wool Week has kind of brought everybody together a bit, in that there's always been crofting, there's always been yarn producers, there's always been yarn sellers and knitters, farrell knitters, lace knitters, but in the past folk have kind of been very unrecognised and their work maybe not seen as an art form. But now with a Wool Week thing, it's kind of everybody's involved, and everybody is seeing the value in the local kind of native crafts and arts really.
Yeah, it is quite surprising what people are looking for when they come here, because to us, living on a croft, it's just what we do, and to us it's maybe not terribly exciting, but people really want to know, and that's really good to be able to share with them.
I think it's just as the world gets more and more generic, folk are desperate for that bit of culture and things that are different and unique, and we've certainly got that here. We have a unique wildlife, and it's, as Donna says, it's definitely worth protecting.
I think Shetland Wool Week has certainly made knitting more popular, or it's helped to make knitting more popular. I think there's more people producing their own yarn, which wouldn't been before, and yeah, I think it's just a way of getting knitting and wool just out to the whole world, really, isn't it?
I think the Shetland Wool Week hat is very eagerly anticipated every year all around the folk. Folk are really keen to make it, and it's really teaching them the Shetland way to make as well, because it's all our native sort of patterns and how we do things.
Cecil and Jennifer Tate are crofters and big supporters of Shetland Wool Week. We took a trip to Bigton to visit Cecil and Jennifer at their croft and take a look inside their workshop, Paperwork Furniture. Ever since he was young, Cecil had a passion for designing and making furniture, showcasing the skills and traditions he learned from previous generations. After completing an HND in Glasgow, Cecil went on to do a degree in furniture craftsmanship and design in High Wycombe, before returning to Shetland to set up his own business, Paperwork Furniture. Cecil's wife Jennifer is also an experienced knitter, selling handmade textiles through their studio, and has a big involvement in Shetland Arts and Crafts Association.
The reason I make furniture was at school I made a chair, and it just clicked for me. I could do it really well. I'm convinced everything I did before wasn't very good, and I made this chair and I was like, oh, this is really good fun and I can do it. And something in me just drove me to go away and do a degree in it, and I came home and I just felt I had to try. And then we didn't actually stay here for a while. We used to stay in Scalo, and then Feather was getting older. What are we going to do with the croft? And I was like, wouldn't that be fun, Jennifer, to go and work with a croft as well? And do both.
So I grew up on a croft. My parents had a croft up in the north end of Shetland, and I always said, I don't want to be a crofter.
Oops.
And yet here we are. Yeah. So it's just been this natural kind of evolution, I guess, tacking this on for his dad, and just, I guess, the diversification, because I don't know, like we were speaking about the markets and that, can sew up and down. I think it's almost been, maybe not a force of hand to diversify, but there has been a pretty bit of that you need to think ahead and how are we going to make this work. So I think a lot of what we're doing has grown out of that, as well as the amazing influence of Wool Week.
Well, we have 4 crofts, so we've got like 200 sheep in total, so we do that part-time. I run a company called Paperwork Furniture, where we make bespoke furniture and a whole bunch of other stuff that we'll get into. What else do we do?
We have started processing and creating our own yarn.
Yep, for the sheep.
Shetland Wool. We are the chairman and secretary general Dogs Body of Shetland Arts and Crafts Association.
Yeah.
I work full-time for the local council.
We sell eggs for Honesty Box. What else? That's about it, isn't it?
That's probably good.
Okay, so Wool Week's been a huge influence on what we're doing right now, because they first asked me if I would come along and teach how to whittle a shawl pin and brooch. And they were trying to have more things to do than just purely knitting. So I was like, really? So I thought, okay, that sounds like fun. So I did a few classes, and they would always sell out. And I was like, oh, and so for being there and speaking to the folk, they were always like, can you make this? Can you do this? Can you do that? And so before COVID, I decided I was going to make a frame to stretch sweaters on. I still wasn't convinced that it would do that well, and they sell like crazy. So we're now become like a global brand with that, I suppose, which is nuts. I think Wool Week's showing folk that our heritage isn't just a thing in the past, because there's so many folk now trying to get away from being in the cities and lifestyle and the idea of having a pretty croft and sheep and growing your own food and all this kind of stuff that we just grew up with, and you're almost like obliged to get away from it for a start as well. It's really weird, isn't it? But then actually it's a far better way to be. It's much more freeing. And there's all these skills that people want to know about, and a lot of people in Shetland have them. We grew up with them. We didn't, like we were hats, we're trying to knit some hats and that, so I've started to knit again. I used to knit as a bairn. It just comes back to you. Tons of folk in Shetland just have that in them, just for the way we grew up. It's really interesting.
I think the things that we were doing, we probably wouldn't be doing if it hadn't been for Wool Week. I think it's been, would you agree, it's been a massive inspiration.
So like the craft tours we're doing, that the first time I did one was, there was somebody who's meant to be doing a craft tour for folk from Iceland, and they couldn't do it. So I got a phone call, can they come and see your sheep? And I was like, yeah, I suppose. And I had no idea what to ask for it or anything. I just, yeah, come you, it'll be fine. We have sheep over at the point here, and I took me all the sheep, dog, and they were all like, wow, you talk the same way, being like, come do, kind of Shetland way. And they're like, we say the same. And you go to see the sheep, they're going, good. They're like, we say the same. And they said, but I was like, this folk really enjoyed this. And then they gave us quite a lot, and I was like, oh, you can earn quite a bit for doing the craft tour. Kind of like, I was surprised how great it was. Yes, as Wool Week was growing, they were asking folk to kind of do more craft tours, and then we kind of think, well, where we stay and the view and everything, it's kind of easy to do a craft tour. So what craft tours, we come here and walk down this field, and we've got sheep over there. So it's, yeah, it's good.
Really amazed at the fact that folk want to come here. They want to, I suppose we take this for granted, the view and what we have here. So the fact that folk want to come and see this and experience it, they want to go for a walk and meet sheep and speak to the sheepdogs and look at the hens. It's amazing, yeah.
So like we are thinking maybe doing like a sheepdog type tour things as well, because I got a few of them. And again, that's by accident. There was a Swedish tour here, and I had a pup that was not very old, but he ended up training sheepdogs. She was doing the first bit just correct for day one, so we had sheep out here, and I took her out, and they were all going, that's amazing, and it wasn't a train at all, it was just did the right thing. And I was like, this folk are easy pleased. Yeah, I think my company fitting in my Wool Weeks worked really well, because if you're going to knit, you need to have items that can stretch things and all that, and so we can easily make that. And then the whole shawl pin and brooch is kind of a really cool accessory. And nowadays people want to try and do things, so it's no that a hard thing. Well, it's kind of hard, but it's not that hard a thing to do. So folk just want to come along and experience that. And from my perspective, if I'm taking on folk to train up, it's really scary to set them on to like doing a handmade chair when they're not trained. But some of the things that we do, like the stretchers and that, it's pretty much sticks with holes in it and that kind of stuff. So if they make a mistake on a bit, it's okay. It's all part of the process. So that's great as well.
Folk seem to want to get back to using their hands and like finding these skills, I guess, and knitting seemed to be a hugely popular thing. I think you saw the sales in wool and yarn and that really seemed to go up, and certainly for what experience, all the accessories and everything that folk wanted to have that go with that. So yeah, it's been great.
I think Wool Week has created Shetland to be like this go-to, well, for knitting, it's like the place to go to. It's like everybody wants to come here because of Fair Isle knitting, and so you're seeing new all through the summer. Then there's tours coming from Sweden and Norway and all over the place. And so some of the classes we were doing purely at Wool Week, we were doing all throughout this summer as well, which is brilliant.
From a Shetland Arts and Crafts perspective as well, then I think we're finding the season is longer, the tourist season, because before COVID the craft fair was becoming a really big thing, and folk were actually starting to come up in November as a destination because it was such a fantastic event. And so I think definitely the seasons are getting longer, and I think Wool Week has really helped with that to kind of push that on. I think tourists want to experience that. Like you say, they didn't come here necessarily for the weather, because you never ken what you're going to get in Shetland. And I think quite a lot of them are quite happy to experience that when we speak about the 4 seasons in one day. So yeah, this could be beautiful for an hour, and I don't know, we could have a torrential downpour, but I think they really enjoy that because they're getting the authentic Shetland.
So my name is Misha Hay, and here we are in Tingwall, and this is my Shetland garden. Gardening is my passion since moving to Shetland about 20 years ago, but in my full-time job I run a tour company and focus on knitting holidays. So I bring people to Shetland, and there are groups of 6 to 12 people, and we tour around Shetland and spend time learning about wool, learning about knitting, and exploring the place. During the pandemic, when the tours were on hold, I had to, well, we were talking about diversifying, I had to diversify, and I set up a small publishing company and publish Shetland Wool Adventures Journal, which is a combination of articles about the place, about obviously wool, textiles, and there are also recipes, food, so a little bit of Shetland. When people couldn't come to Shetland, the idea was to take Shetland to them and post it to them to their homes. I'm hoping, well, I'm definitely going back to running tours next year again, so I'm happy to relaunch those, but also in the process of that, publishing cookery books, and we are working on a Shetland guidebook at the moment as well, so it'll be a combination of publishing and touring again. Shetland Wool Week, well, we go back to about, I think I'll get this wrong, but probably 2009, or when the first one happened. And at that point I was working at Promote Shetland, which was at that point, or still is, a marketing body for Shetland. And we did have quite limited budget, as you can imagine, and the idea was to promote the place through what makes it special or what is special about it. And Shetland textiles and Shetland wool were one of those. So at that point, Jamieson and Smith and Shetland Amenity Trust started a small festival. This was part of the campaign for wool, and they were tasked with organizing a short event to celebrate textiles. And we somehow got talking about organizing a bigger festival, and that's how Shetland Wool Week, well, we started being involved with Promote Shetland, and the event started growing bigger and bigger as more people were invited every year. So the idea behind running the tours was that people who couldn't come to Wool Week or didn't want to organize the whole package themselves, they could come here, be looked after, and the idea is that they go around the place, they learn about the heritage and obviously the crofting and farming and where the wool comes from. And in the afternoon they can knit, or we go for walks because we do knitting and hiking as well. And also to experience the whole of Shetland, they will then eat with local eateries, and the focus is Shetland lamb, as much Shetland produce as possible. So hopefully by the end of each tour people are leaving with a good knowledge of the place, and I always feel when they fall in love with the place, that's my job done, especially if they want to return. So.
My name is James Tate. I'm a self-employed tour guide here in beautiful Shetland, and I've been a tour guide for over 10 years. Yeah, along with tour guiding, I'm also involved in crofting. So along with my brother Cecil, I run a flock of sheep down in Ireland and Bigton, and we've just started selling some of our, getting some of our wool spun into yarn to sell direct to tourists, but mostly it's selling lambs into the meat trade. The kind of tours that I provide they're mostly general tours that can, for somebody here in Shetland for the first time, to give them a really good introduction to the place. But a lot of it is I'm focusing on the history, the archaeology and the culture and the landscapes of Shetland, and also incorporating maybe a bit of the wildlife and the geology. And also it's been great that we've been able to bring our crofting side of things into the tours as well. Over the time I've been tour guiding, I've done tours for some farm groups, particularly Field Farm Tours UK. They've been up here with folks, and that's really kind of opened my eyes to the opportunities we have for linking farming and tourism in together. I've also had groups for Sweden here on sort of knitting themed holidays or wool and walking holidays. So we've been able to bring some of them along to the croft to show them our sheep and kind of what we're doing as well. Look, to give you an idea of a tour, a lot of my tours are day tours, starting and finishing in Lerwick, and we'll just meet folk in the town and then just take them for a day. It'll be to a specific area of Shetland, because Shetland's too big to see in one day, which surprises a lot of folk when they come here. So, for example, we'll do a tour to the south mainland or a tour to the north mainland of Shetland in a day, just going around some of the sites, with a lunch stop in the middle. Wool Week has become increasingly important for tourism in general, but also we've been managing to tap into that to work croft business. And it's particularly Cecil and Jennifer. They've been taking folk to see to see some of the yarn. Cecil's been doing taking folk to see some of our sheep. Obviously, he's more home-based with his workshop next to the croft. I tend to be off roaming around Shetland with folk, so he's in a position there to show folk where sheep and where yarn, and it's been a really good. Wool Week is really helping to showcase not just the yarn, but Wool Week is showcasing, I think, all of Shetland's crofting to visitors from all over the world, which is really great. Yeah, I've taken you here to see Clickham Broch, one of many brochs built in Shetland in the Iron Age, round about 300 BC. This one used to be on the edge of Lerwick, and as the town has grown up, it's kind of now surrounded by the town. And this one is a place that I do sometimes include on my tours, take folk to see some of the broch archaeology. This one's a bit different from many other brochs because it's surrounded by older defensive walls, maybe for the Bronze Age. And when brochs were the in thing, this one was built in the middle of an older defensive structure. It's local stone, and there's an awful lot of mystery about the brochs because we're not really sure exactly what they were all used for. It's obviously defensive, but beyond that, there's a lot of debate. There's a lot of discussion about did they have a roof on it or not, for example, that kind of thing. So yeah, very big part of Shetland's history and features a lot on the tours. Come and see a broch.
Yeah, I'm Steve Matheson and I am the Shetland Development Manager for Visit Scotland. Wool Week has been an absolute revelation for the tourism sector in Shetland. One of our issues is that we've traditionally had a very short season, just running really between April and September. And we've relied in the past on other festivals and other events that go on outside that kind of core time in the summer. But we've never had anything which has worked to the extent of Wool Week. I think the last time that there was any economic impact survey done, I think it was £2 million that it was worth to the Shetland economy. And that's a massive boost at what's traditionally a very quiet time of the year. It's definitely had a big impact on the wider Shetland community. What we're doing here is we're celebrating one of Shetland's traditional industries, which has been going for centuries, and it encompasses the whole of Shetland, and of course every other craft really is associated with wool, and obviously it's got a very big impact on the crofting sector.
Thank you for watching this crop update for FAS TV. I'm Fiona Burnett from SRUC. So we're here in Midlothian, middle of November, in the rain, which has really been the theme for crops this autumn. We're already 4 significant storms into the season, and particularly Storm Babette around the Forfar area has had major impacts. Other areas wet but less affected. And in that very badly affected area, we've clearly lost quite a bit of vegetable and a few potato crops where it was a struggle to get them out. And again, big patches of fields sitting underwater and some kind of very evident erosion. Other areas not so bad, and clearly the winter cereals went into kind of warm, damp conditions. Many came away quite well, although winter barleys are now beginning to struggle and looking a bit yellow. Winter wheat perhaps a bit more resilient. Some of the issues we're seeing from those better areas coming into our clinic, really nothing in the way of disease. Crops have other things to be worried about this year. But we are seeing some slow emergence, particularly where fields were trashy and wet, and the seed has struggled to grow quickly with slug damage coming in on the back of that. Other things to think about that kind of follow from that very bad storm period. Clearly where potatoes are being harvested wet, getting them cured is a priority, and diseases like gangrene, skin spot and black dotter are particularly concerning. It's likely that some of our winter acreage will be down, and many people have put away drills now for the winter, so we don't know how much of the winter crop will be lost. Hopefully a good proportion will recover, but likely that spring acreage will be up slightly. And other things to think about, we are concerned about the efficacy of some of the autumn herbicides, the residuals, and indeed some fields were too wet to get autumn herbicides on, so thinking about your weed control in the spring might be a priority. And then other things we've seen historically in years where we've had a lot of flooding is a movement of soil-borne problems like PCN and clubroot. So testing fields around fields that you know to be infected could be very important. And it's also very likely that in already infected fields, existing patches will have spread. So that is worth checking for in the spring as well.